Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, we are back. It is episode 131 of the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord to West Michigan, Charlie Carden, joined as always by my number one Trekking dude, Mr. Peter Stein. Good evening.
Hello.
We are actually recording midweek, which happens really rarely, but I am off to Fan Expo Chicago this weekend with Todd Oxtra, which means that as you're listening to this, there is no Secret Friends Unite podcast next week. So sorry about that. We can only do so much. But when we return to that show, we'll certainly tell about all the revels and excitement that we had doing that program. So got a great show for you today, aping the format of last time. We're still breaking down Star Trek Prodigy, but in order to give it a little bit more gravitas, we're doing it slowly. So we got three episodes to talk about there. And then we are going to finish season 5 of Deep Space Nine. Wow. Lot of stuff going on there.
So much stuff going on.
Well, without further ado, we'll get right to, with further ado, we will get to that, but I do obviously have to pay, as I always do, pay homage to the wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon squad. These are the wonderful people that make it possible for folks like Peter and myself and Todd and all the rest of the crew to make great bonus content. And they support us financially and emotionally, and we are extremely grateful. If you visit patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, for as little as $2 a month, you get access to bonus podcasts, early podcasts without ads, all kinds of fun stuff, and new programs like our partner Mark's Walk Nerdy With Me podcast, where he's walking around the lean streets of CBI and talking about his thoughts. On the besties level, Chris 1H1D, Derek Trevelyan, who is my buddy the figure dude, and I'm so embarrassed, Francie, who I'm like, Francie, we'd love to get to know you. That's my wife's hairdresser. Because I've heard the name before, but she loves the Bad Movie podcast that April and I do together. Nice. Which it took me a minute to make the connection. So Francie, thank you, and I apologize for not remembering. And then when I record with Todd again, I will definitely make mention of it. My awesome Uncle Tim Horan, very grateful for your support. On the Friends with Benefits level, John Sedorf, the awesome Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, our partner Kelly, who we're going to see in Chicago this weekend. So we're really looking forward to hanging out with her in person and introducing her to Todd because they've not met. Brendan Myers, Corey and HD, and Matthew Keel. And as we've mentioned on some of our other shows recently, the Nias family of the Twin Cities has shot up in the rankings. They do a family tier now called the Secret Friend Super Squad. We are super grateful for Sean, Stella, and Henry. So thank you for everything that you do to support us. Once again, visit patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. 7 days for free. Listen to our shows. And if you like it, we invite you to stick around because I think there's a good chance that you will. All right. Well, no news this week, or Peter, I should say, I forgot to check.
There hasn't been anything that I've heard. So.
I think I looked yesterday, so I didn't see anything that was popping out at me. So we will jump right in to talking about back into season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy. So we're up to episode 9. Peter, if you would be so kind.
Are we doing 9 and 10 together, or are we just doing 9?
Dealer's choice. You choose.
Right. Well, I'll read both just because they are kind of connected. So, and then we can poke at
we have a 2-parter, and then we have the first part of a 2-parter, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it works.
That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, but go for it. Read them both,
right.
And then
we'll
break them
episode
down
9 and episode 10. So the Devourer of All Things, parts 1 and 2. Part 1. Finally arriving at the coordinates, the Infinity crew discovers a hidden planet and the long-awaited identity of their mysterious messenger. Ooh. And then, after that, on the run from their time-erasing pursuers, the Infinity crew and their new ally search for an escape. The Voyager embarks on a rescue mission.
A rescue mission again. Well, we got a lot going on here. Culminating with a long-lost long lost face. So yeah, what did you think? I have my notes, but I always love to hear you talk first, so go for
Yeah,
it.
I quite liked the beginning of this episode. Was quite fun, where they had to do like a subspace inversion to be able to even see the planet.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I think the last time we saw somebody do that, other than the planet that like phases in and out because it like
Yes, the
disappears for whatever in Deep Space Nine.
Meridian. Yeah, Meridian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other time we saw that was when the bow breaks, where they could cloak the planet.
Right.
So that was kind of a cool thing that we saw, um, that they had to do that. Um, but so that was cool. And then they're wandering around this thing, and then we figure out who finally this messenger is, which is, you know, spoilers. It's
Lo-
Wesley Crusher.
Love him or hate him, and his outfit is just so greatly on point.
It's
Now,
also hysterical how these two episodes really, really, really lean into the. There's several fan theories that revolve around this.
yeah,
Interestingly enough, when they're walking through this temple slash maze slash whatever it is, you see a statue and you hear some background dialogue from the traveler from the
right,
Next Generation.
right.
Um, but when Wesley like opens up that main room and some of the ways that he behaves, some of the way that he talks about things, they're really tying in the travelers to the Time Lords from Doctor Who, which is
Right.
hysterical, especially
Right.
if you look at how his control center operates.
Wow.
With a
Okay.
center console and all of the things going around it, and a big glowy thing in the middle where all the command things happen, and then
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The inside.
and then of course you have the Assignment Earth reference in the second
Oh,
episode, which is even better.
I loved it because they jump into an office and I'm like, oh, they're in Don Draper's office from Mad Men. But yeah,
Nope,
yeah,
it's Gary Sevens.
Gary Seven, because they kind of loop it all back together. That this is all one in the gun. The monsters, and it was great. We got a lot of cool name drops, like Wesley saying, you've crossed over, you're like the this and species or that species, or the mirror universe or the mycelial plane. Oh, you're not supposed to know about that one. So
Yeah,
it's an acceptable Discovery reference, as you and I being two guys who are historically not super fond of Discovery, but that's okay. But it's good. I like a Star Trek that can look back lovingly on all aspects of everything, because again, it just really helps somebody, new viewer, get their hands around it. Again, this being made for kids, that means nothing to a kid, but you never know for the most ardent fans.
but when you
Yeah.
do things like that, it broadens the universe. It makes the universe larger, which is
Yeah.
something that's definitely helpful, because then it's to the point where it's like, hey, there's more to this than just Prodigy. Maybe
Right.
you want to go look at it. So
Right.
that's always a good thing.
Absolutely correct. So yeah, I love that. We do meet I think I call them the time bears, the creatures that are eating everything. Now
Yeah.
there was this will go way over your head because it went over mine, but or it would have gone over mine. But in the 90s, there was a Stephen King book adapted into a really low budget TV miniseries called The Langoliers. I don't know how much familiarity you have with Stephen King.
A little bit. Yeah.
April's a huge fan, but it had to do with the fact that the way that moments pass in time is that little creatures appear and they eat everything around it so that something new can spawn. Like it happens second to second. And in that they had these people on a plane flew through an anomaly or something and landed at an airport where nobody was around, and then these things started showing up. So Bronson Pinchot from Stranger Perfect Strangers was in, as well as Dean Stockwell. There was something Dean Stockwell was in. So yeah. So anyway, that was kind of how I identified that. So
Yeah, it's very interesting how you have these things are like predators that eat dying timelines, as it were.
Right. Crunchy.
So it's something that interestingly has been a trope that's appeared in a couple recent media.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's just something around where everyone's thinking the same thing. We are in the darkest timeline according to Zelda, so who knows?
Right, exactly. And time travel stuff works so great for Star Trek in particular, because right, almost practically neck and neck, just separated by a couple of years from Doctor Who. It's the one of the very longest running sci-fi franchises that's still cranking out material. So finding ways to connect them is pretty awesome.
Which they have recently with the two idle games with Doctor Who's version and then Lower Decks version. They have a crossover event going on.
Right.
There was a big push at Comic-Con with Friendship is Universal, where it was the two.
Right. Yeah, I did see that. I like it. So anyway, I gave segment 1 a 9 out of 10. I do tend to get annoyed with Will Wheaton's shtick. His all because I've spoken to him in real life, and he's not even close to being like that. So he's acting, but he's overacting. But then again, we love Shatner for that too, because it fits the mold not only for his role in this, but also for the audience it's intended, because he's all, I'm a freewheeling show guy. And as I said, I met Will Wheaton in person. He's a perfectly nice guy. He's a little standoffish. He has a tough history of dealing with abuse growing up, so I understand that. But it was his Ready Room segments are not the height of my level of enjoyment.
Yeah, he's definitely, this version of Wesley is definitely more towards his public persona now than it is more what Wesley was in TNG, which is fine. Like, characters evolve. It was just an interesting thing to note.
Right. And we saw Wesley once in live action at the end of the very regrettable second season of Picard, where he appears and he takes Corey Sung away and she becomes one of them.
That could have been a so much better moment than it
was. That was a meeting that could have been an email. Oh no, there we go. Is that an early title for the episode? Meeting that could have been an email. Well, you keep talking while I type this. Feel free to give me some more thoughts. Give me some more of your thoughts as we get into part 2.
Yeah, so in part 2, we now have the time predators that are chasing them. Most of this episode, they're hiding in the in Gary Seven's office, which, fair enough. But then we have the creatures go up to attack Voyager, which gets a little intense.
Big time.
And then towards the end, Janeway's just like, okay, I have to figure out what's going on here, and I have to save the crew that's on the planet, which is, our gang.
Yeah.
And so
the little rascals.
Yes, that they basically are. They're up to no good. So Dahl's kind of alfalfa. He's got the one thing sticking out of the back of his head, right? And anyway, so
yes,
totally Majel eventually goes down with them. Actually, I think she went down earlier.
She did end up with the gang. I think
she went down with the commander. And
Ensign Ricky, who I feel like they made him a red shirt instead of a gold shirt. Like, it was like, you're kind of teeing that one up.
They went for the joke. Yes.
Yeah, they went for the joke.
It was interesting how they did the set piece where they allowed Wesley's comment about the time munchers to come into play, where he got eaten out of existence.
Ouch.
He just got chomped, and then no one remembered who he was except for the commander, because he beamed back.
Right.
Because he was saved because of the time bar band on his arm.
Everybody's got your time Apple Watch there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But eventually Janeway makes it down to the planet, and we get a loving revisit of Tank Top Janeway with her phaser rifle,
right?
Which was kind of a fun little reference.
And I missed it because she ducks behind and jumps in a shuttlecraft, and then she's in the tank top. I'm like, why I didn't even see her taking her.
She had it on when she was going down, and then she took it. She wasn't wearing it when she crawled out of the shuttle after it crashed.
Right? No, she was wearing it in the shuttle. That's what I noticed, because on the ship she's like, I gotta get out of here, and so she segues to the shuttle, or the shuttle rises up. And then you see her inside it. She took her shirt off for some reason. It was weird.
I thought it was after she crashed,
and it's particularly weird because let's not forget, it's either in this episode I think it's in the next one, where she rattles off, Janeway's 3 rules for being a captain, and one of them is to keep your shirt on, and she does not do that. So, but she's the admiral. I don't know.
Well, she technically does still have a shirt on.
Right.
She just has the over jacket off.
Right.
So.
But when she gets beamed back up, not to jump too far ahead, when Wesley snaps her back up again at the end of part 2, and she little portal opens over her chair and she drops down, she has her tunic back on. So
Yes.
it is a costume laundering service that's provided by the Travelers. So isn't
I guess so.
which is weird why Wesley has to say, hey, I've got tons of sweaters to lend. Why does he need clothes? I mean, everything comes out of a replicator. So I know I'm getting a little granular.
Crusher's Laundry.
Right. Crusher's Laundry. So Jadmiral, she's helping out.
Yeah, and eventually we find out that Wesley needs all of the cadets, including Majel, to solidify the temporal coordinates so that they can jump through to go find the protostar, which is basically where this episode ends.
His temporal beast is he does a little double. I wrote a double Easter egg name drop: Borth crystals plus the orb of time. What? How did he get that orb of time? That was pretty cool.
The Bajorans would never let him have it. I would assume that he got it from a timeline that was dying.
Right. Oh, there you go. That is a really convenient way to sneak around it. So yes, so Janeway gets sent back. The kids are off. The creatures are encroaching. And then our kids end up, I love this. They end up in the clouds, but on a sandbar. And in the distance is the protostar. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, I think we also see a bearded Chakotay staring off into the distance.
Right. Yes, that's right. That's preceded it. So to wrap up episode 2, my rating was 8 out of 10. I noted 2 demerits because I didn't like Janeway's quick change. That drove me nuts. And when I keep calling her Michelle, though her name is
Majel, M-A-J-E-L.
I like Michelle. I'm sticking with that. But when she doesn't want to go back with the away team, she takes off her badge and tosses it after having worn it, and then the badge beams out. That's not transporter technology. That's
sometimes how transporters work is a little fuzzy, especially after the JJ movies and the infamous fall. So.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I loved Gary Seven's office. And I loved when Ensign Ricky got eaten, he had a Wilhelm scream. So that was
pretty fun. I always love Wilhelm scream Easter eggs.
Gotta do it. So cool. All right. Well, I'll jump into an episode 11 then, because that is mine, but I do have to scroll back up in my notes. So we have a part 1, Last Flight of the Protostar, part 1, episode 11. Thanks to Wesley's intervention, the cadets find the Protostar, but the ship's Maroon Guardian isn't eager for their assistance. And as we already know, that is Grumpy Chakotay. Because we get a montage. Here's another consistency thing that drives me nuts. We get a montage of old Chakotay, as it's quickly revealed, who's got this awesome beard, but his hair doesn't grow. So
he still cuts his hair.
Even with the fact that and it's funny. I remember that one episode of Voyager in the Voyager 2 part of the Year of Hell, where the ship was destroyed and Tuvok had gone blind in an accident, but he was still shaving himself. But he had this horrific straight razor, and I'm like, is that the only way to shave yourself in the future? But is Chakotay just doing that?
They have decided to become more civilized.
I guess it's just very bizarre. But beards are cool. But right away, the kids get there. They get snared in like an Ewok net, which is great. And I wrote Old Man C and the Hollow Lady, which could be another name of the episode, but I like my first one better. But yeah, because this is the Protostar and it's still functioning, there's hologram Janeway in her classic outfit. He's like, hey, I want to, we're here to restore the timeline, yada, yada, yada. And he won't even let him in the door and like, well, there's a storm coming, make yourself a tent. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of supplies and shit rolling around outside that they can set up a tent. Obviously, it's not a situation that's going to last long. I did note right at this point, I love the setting of this episode, the red sands, the big cloudy mountain, the ion storm. That was like, it was something, I think it was accomplished really beautifully with this animation. I think that
the planet looked really cool.
Yeah, so I was definitely impressed by that. So Chakotay lets him in, and Dahl is still running his mouth. It's like, dude, shut up.
Dahl has a penchant for that.
Yeah, Chakotay says the ship can't fly because there's no engine. And we found I do love when he's up on the bridge. This is a reference you won't get because again, unless you're very familiar with the career of Robert Beltran, he puts he he leans back in the captain's chair and he's going to take a nap, but he's still like, well, I can't help you guys, whatever. And he has like a cowboy hat, or it's akin to like Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones hat. It reminded me of Robert Beltran's breakout role in a low budget movie called The Night of the Comet from the early 80s, where he plays kind of a cowboy trucker. So I'm like, that's cowboy trucker.
Could be a reference to that. I also seem to remember him wearing a hat like that at conventions in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's his shtick.
It might be just that.
He's from out west. I think he's from Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. He's a Mesoamerican as far as his.
And there seems to be a lot more, at least with newer Star Trek, of bringing in aspects of the actors into their characters,
right.
Which I do have mixed feelings about for some, but this is fine.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes it can be a little too like Will Wheaton in his shtick. It's like, well, Wesley really wasn't like that.
Yeah, some of the more stupid elements in Picard season 2.
Right.
Were
I keep dangling here because I do want to show off my very cool Voyager pendant that I'm wearing, but it's too low under the camera.
It's your con version from the 24th century.
Yes,
you just
exactly.
Need to crack an edge.
I did. Yeah, you're right. There's a little scratch along the back. But anyway, this is why you should be watching us on YouTube, because otherwise I'm dressed very summer casual today. I thought I would break out, wear something a little different. Since Peter wears the uniform, I usually just rotate through t-shirts.
Well, today I'm dressed for Borg engineering. So
yes, exactly. Because yes, it's what is it, 39.1 Celsius?
Yeah,
engineering. Yes,
it's not that hot here, thankfully. But.
Exactly. So, anyway, I noted Chakotay has a handmade chess set, which is very sad because one of the pieces is a Dreek, who is the Birdman. His
who I believe we find out what happened to him in this episode.
We do, but I have a bone to pick, and this is one of the demerits that I gave for this episode.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yes. Oh, ouch. Is that how I wrote Hollow Lady, or Holographic Janeway, is telling the story of Chakotay's lost crew, of which he has a photo of them. Why haven't we seen any of them to date, or am I just absolutely missing that? Because he had a crew of like 10 people, and we've only ever seen a Dreek. Did they all die?
I think in one of the background shots of the ship getting launched, we saw like one or two others of them, and that was it.
But they died on Tarzamora, or wherever, or whatever that planet was where it got lost.
Gwendala's home planet. They died there, which is interesting,
right? And then I guess for the sake of the fact that it's a kid's cartoon, they want to dance around it a little bit. I guess I get it. I wrote Chakotay's outfit doesn't make a lot of sense. He's wearing basically a t-shirt which is tattered. I get it. He's been there for 10 years, but it's the same pattern as the the particular Protostar uniform, which is the gray and the black with the swipe. Mm-hmm. It just seems really bizarre to me, but
I mean, if you to do another new track reference, Picard season 3 has that when they pull off Shaw's uniform and the
the black undershirt has it has the
division band. So there's precedent for it. It's just it does seem a little strange.
He's a little ahead of his time. I like it. Yep. So Gwendala gets all noble. They're like, yeah, we need we don't have more. We have to do more than just fix a ship. We got to fix a captain. We got to get him back in the game. So we get a very typical 1980s montage scene. It's cleaning up. Dal is gathering wood or whatever and manages to run to follow the local wildlife. I could have seen that coming. Not a big
Dal getting yanked into a hole by a monster.
Right. Yep. We get a big sand monster, big underground chase sequence.
Yes, it felt somewhat Dune-ish mixed with something else, but
they're doing a lot of effective mixing because it's just little touches.
Yeah,
here and there.
Prodigy has been very good about like, hey, here's this other thing that and we're just going to kind of use some of it. Like as we noted in earlier episodes, how the Infinity looked very much like the Nebuchadnezzar from Matrix.
Exactly. But yeah, they go through this whole chase thingy. The Protostar has a little hover, like a hover sled thing, which helps rescue him. And
it's the off-road vehicle that they had in season 1.
Oh, there you go.
So they fixed it up.
Yeah. But yeah, through all this, they end up in a chamber where they find the skeletal remains of Adric, the Birdman. But in death, Adric had recovered or had repaired the Protostar car, something
Yeah.
Protostar
He had
core.
managed to collect
Yeah.
enough antimatter for them to be able to start a reaction.
Exactly. So yeah, so Chakotay's like, that's awesome. Let's do it. They give Adric this totally awesome Viking style funeral where they push his coffin off into the clouds, which was awesome to see.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
It's
great.
the interesting thing about the kids shows that is that when they send a character off, they tend to do it very decently. Like, I don't know
Right.
if you're too familiar with like the Clone Wars, but when like Master
Of course.
Pell died on
Right.
Mustafar,
Yeah.
like how that ended was very similar. So they handle it very well, which is interesting because a lot of the adult shows
Not so
don't.
much. Not a lot of care. No, I
They
don't.
either just like, well, he's dead, and then they leave the corpse wherever he fell,
Yeah.
or they're just
weekend
they
at
either
Bernie's.
don't they
Right.
either leave the corpse, they don't acknowledge the fact that this character died, or they just get like all the weepy about it, and it's
Yeah.
just over the top.
You just
So,
you
but
can't
these
find
ones seem to handle it.
Yeah.
These ones handle it age appropriately, which is
Right.
good.
Which, yeah, without violence and with reverence, and that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So my rating for this episode 11 was 9 out of 10. I did write Chakotay is probably one of my favorite characters. I use my favorite character on Voyager. He's my only EX06 figure. So I have him. He's up in
Oh,
the
nice.
living room. Those figures are so nice, but man,
They
they're
look really cool. I can't justify them.
yeah,
And
they're
I too really, when I was watching Voyager the first time through,
Yeah.
Chakotay was one of the characters that I really, really liked.
yeah.
I didn't like him in the later seasons, but there's reasons for how all
Yeah.
that happened. I understand there's all sorts of behind the scenes stuff.
He did tend to get a little dull, but those figures, not that I'm trying to plug for them, they're hard to get around, and once they make one run of them and they're gone, so then you're on eBay looking for them, and it's but they're really quality. So yeah, they're right plus or minus about $200 a drop. So it's a special treat for yourself. Save your money. But if you have a favorite character, like I'd love to grab the Pike. I even had it pre-ordered, but financially speaking, it's not a good time for me, so I had to cancel it. It kind of bummed me out. But you know what? The thing about merch, and you can see with the figures behind me, if you're like, oh, I missed out on XYZ, stuff always comes around.
It comes back, and every once in a while, there's a good-hearted soul who's willing to sell it at a not insane markup because they're just like, someone else would enjoy this, and that.
Well, I mean, let's not forget my story at Motor City Comic Con earlier this year, where I found one of the two final 2-packs of the Battlestar Galactica figures that I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That is you remember it was Ty.
Oh, yeah, it's the one that I have that I got somehow.
Yeah, that the guy gave me. He was going to sell it to me for $40. I had $30 in cash, so he just gave it to me for $30, which is a phenomenal deal.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, I wish I would have brought out the other one I needed was the Boomer Sharon one," which he said, "Oh, I might have that somewhere." So hopefully,
bring it next time.
Hopefully, I'll catch him again next time. So, but yeah, I love seeing his Old Man in the Sea routine. I thought they nailed it.
Yeah,
I gave a point deduction because he didn't have a sweet ass long ponytail, because I think that would have been much.
That would have looked pretty cool.
That I would have liked a whole lot more. So, well, all right. Well,
I will just make one more comment.
Please.
Is that this particular version of like the sad mopey dude character?
Yeah.
Because we've had a bunch of those kinds of stories recently. Luke Skywalker and Last Jedi, Picard himself, Riker to a lesser extent. Where you just have like these characters that we last saw and they were doing pretty well, and all of a sudden they're really sad.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really sad.
This one actually did it in a way that made sense because he had to stay there to not disrupt the timeline, but it sucked, and then he kind of gave up. So that I just want to give them props for that, because they actually managed to pull it off in a way that other stories that have tried to do this recently just didn't manage to land.
Yeah. No, agreed. Awesome. Well, again, that was part one. We'll jump into part two when we come back next time.
See the more shenanigans when we get to the other parts.
Stuff in the clouds.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencaster. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencaster is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencaster because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencaster has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencaster? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of Zen knowing Zencaster's multi layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencaster's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to Zencaster.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
But anyway, well, we're moving on to wrapping up the 5th season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. My gosh, this is a packet of 7 episodes, and we have
oh boy, is it I mean this in the best way possible. It is a mixed bag.
It is a very wide range of things. But I will kick us off with episode 20 this season, which is Ferengi Love Songs. Directed by Rene Auberjonois. Wow, what an interesting. And you know what? What's interesting is, it's directed by one of the cast, but it's also written by 2 of the key writers on the show, which is Ira and Hans Beimler. From April of 97. At the end of his rope, Quark returns home and discovers that Moogie has a secret lover. My God. It's just, I mean,
this is like this is another one of those Ferengi episodes that is just it's so stupid it works.
Yeah, big time. Because you find out that Moogie has taken up with the Nagus, Wallace Shawn, who again, April and I are watching Young Sheldon right now, and he is a recurring character on
Wallace Shawn is a great actor.
And he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. I don't know that he does shows, but I would love to meet him, shake his hand, and just tell him how much I like him. But he has become.
It's funny for me because the first time I ever saw him in anything was The Princess Bride.
Well, sure.
So it's just really funny. With the first time I watched Deep Space Nine was like, it's just you're seeing Zach and you're like, inconceivable, Quark, what are you doing?
Right. Clunk, clunk. It was everything in this is played for laughs. But you're finding out that Moogie's secret lover is obviously it's Wallace Shawn. He's also gotten very absent-minded, so she's the one behind the scenes.
She is the power behind the throne, literally.
Right, exactly. And a female, my God. So yes, we go through a whole arc from stem to stern, where Quark has to. He breaks them up and he gets Brunt involved. So we get Jeffrey Combs in as Brunt FCA again. And I think the second or third appearance of the character.
Yeah.
And I love it when we get into the later episodes where you have Jeff Combs playing different
Brunt and Wayoon and somebody else in the same episode. It's really funny.
Absolutely spectacular. So, this was all played for laughs. It was a good time, very low stakes because at the end of it gets sewn up. And I remember very specifically, so I was in college, but I was potentially home this weekend or home the weekend that this was on, watching with my mother. And the bit at the end with Quark and his Marauder Mo action figures.
Action figures.
Yeah. He said would have been worth more if they were in the package. And of course, as collectors, that's always.
I'm always the guy that takes them out of the box. There are a few figures that I still have in the box, but it's only 2.
It was funny. I was going through off to my left here is my Foot Locker, which is full of my childhood mementos. I have a handful of carded figures. I think maybe a Picard Playmates, and then like a Boba Fett from the Power of the Force 90s line. So it's like things that aren't worth anything.
I have a Locutus from the early run, and then
nice.
And then I have
Playmates,
Yep, and then I have a not worth the same at all, but a first run. When Clone Wars first came out, Anakin Skywalker. It's got a special sticker on it and everything.
A special sticker. I love it. Yeah. So collecting is very subjective. You're never going to make gazillions. And again, April and I sling toys on the side just for fun.
Yeah, and for most people, it's just like, open the thing and enjoy it. It's fine. Quark would agree with you. He opened them.
He did, yes. He opened his Marauder Mo action figures, just let it go. But anyway, super fun episode.
That was so ridiculous.
And definitely lightening the tone because things get very heavy
Yeah,
early
things
on.
get really heavy later, so they wanted to just like, here's
Right.
something silly, and it's
There
great.
you go. That's it. And they did it right.
And
All
I
right.
think, is this the first episode where Moogie changes actresses?
I
Or
feel
did
like
that
that
happen
was
before?
the last one.
Okay.
Because this is the third appearance of the character, but it was I'm confusing my Moogies, but let me bring the link up since we're talking about it. Ishka is her name.
Yeah, Ishka's.
First played by Andrea Martin, who was from the totally awesome sketch show SCTV from Canada back in the 80s, and then became Cecily Adams took over the role in 1997 through 99. So she did the majority of the appearances.
Okay.
But yes, both wonderful ladies. Oh my gosh, Cecily Adams passed away in 2004. Did not know that. Very sad. But yeah, super fun episode. And judging by what we get next, which Peter's going to tell you about,
oh boy,
you'll be glad that you got the break.
Yeah. If you thought that the other one was too light,
yes,
wait.
Light and
So
fluffy.
episode 21, Soldiers of the Empire, directed by LeVar Burton, written by Ronald D. Moore, aired
My
April
man.
28th of 97. Martok, Worf, and Dax, surprise, go on a mission aboard a Klingon ship, the Rontaran, to
Right.
search for a missing Klingon vessel. However, Martok's uneasiness about battle, a result of his captivity, further affects his crew's morale.
Right. Not a good situation. So,
No.
yeah, I love it how you said and Dax because it's funny. She ends up tagging along like, oh, I'm coming along. I'm the science officer. I'm like, yeah, okay.
It was a pretty funny moment. She's like walking with Worf and he's like, well, I do not want to say goodbye. Well, we're not. What?
Yeah, right. But yeah, you get to see Worf ditch the Starfleet outfit for the Klingon bit. And
Dax didn't though. She has before.
Yeah.
But she didn't this time, which was interesting.
Yeah, this was not the appropriate time. But we get a couple of great guest appearances. Rick Worthy is the young sleeveless Klingon, who we know as the Dr. Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. And he's actually from Detroit. He's from Southfield, Rick Worthy. So a little Michigan connection for you. And then the other guy's name is David. And he passed away not that long ago, but he played Hightower in the Police Academy movies. If you're at all familiar with those, there was a dumb series of
I haven't seen them, but I'm familiar with.
Yeah, zany comedies from the '80s. So that is how I'm going to have to. I'll go. Oh, they don't even have the guest cast listed. Oh wait, here we go. David Graff is his name, was Leskett, and they had Rick Worthy was Corin. Yeah, exactly. So. And we have a B plot. I'm just jogged my memory with Nog doing his rotation as a cadet in security, and everybody is giving him shit and disrespecting him, and he's like, I can't. He's the Rodney Dangerfield. I can't get no respect. But
that was in the previous episode, wasn't it?
I thought
this one because he confronted Martok at the end.
Oh, gotcha. What I saw his name in it, and I'm like, what other role did he have in this? But yes,
there was a B plot. I don't remember what it was.
I'm drawing a blank too. I thought it was the deal with Nog. But anyway, it's funny because you watch these and the B plots, if they're that light and fluffy, it doesn't really stand out.
Yeah, but that's because the A plot for this episode is pretty intense.
It's pretty intense. So as you were saying, Martok is really reluctant. They have an opportunity in this mission to attack a ship, and they don't because Martok's like, I'm following orders, and that's not our mission. And everybody is pissed off because this ship is like the study hall, detention class of the Klingon high school. Everybody is just so sick and tired of losing. Most of their crew has died here and there, so everybody's really on edge and fighting with each other. And they really need somebody to step up. So at a pivotal moment, Worf does challenge Martok in a very serious duel to the death on the bridge, but neither one of them is going to die. Martok does manage to waylay him, and then they end up going into combat anyway, and everybody's just super jazzed. They're singing
They
the
start
song.
singing, which is good because
Yeah.
Worf tried to start singing that song when they launched the ship, and no one wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. He was not the cheerleader that they needed on that ship. He was
No.
not. He didn't have pom poms.
He was the cheerleader they deserved, but not the one that they
Exactly.
needed.
So it's very nice. There's some touching moments at the end where they're back on the station, and Worf and Martok are having a heart to heart. And hey, sorry, I had to do that. And he's like, you were right in following orders or whatever. And he said, I see you're still wearing the emblem of the House of Moog. And he's like, yeah, it's just it's symbolism because the House of Moog is gone. And he said, I would welcome you to my house as a brother. And he pulls the patch off and hands it to him. And it was funny. Costume note, I noticed when Worf pops off the House of Moog, I could see, even the standard definition, I could somehow still see all the little, like, almost staple marks on his baldric. And then he sticks the Martok one to him, but very clever editing, they cut it away, because if he would let go of it, it would have fallen out. There was no adhesive on the back of it. So, but it was done really well. And I thought,
Yes.
it was a super touching moment.
It's a very good scene. And it finally brings some closure to Worf's houselessness that's been running throughout.
He is Worf the stray dog.
His character's existence.
Yeah. So I definitely like that. That was awesome. So any other thoughts before we move on?
No, I mean, it's a solid episode. Really helps look at, PTSD in a way from torture that Martok dealt with, and at least the Klingon method of overcoming it.
Right.
So
exactly. Man, oh man. All right. Well, moving on to an episode that I totally dig, but I'll let you do. This is one that I'm pretty sure came from I read an article about it at the time, and this came from an outside.
This is actually your episode too.
Oh, it is? Did you read that last one? Well,
I read Soldiers
not paying attention. But anyway, episode 22, and now for something entirely different. Children of Time. Great Canadian director Alan Craker was doing the directing. Story by Gary Holland and Ethan H. Koch. So again, if we were to click on the link, I would almost guarantee you it came from the slush pile. But from May of 97, an accident causes the crew to meet their own descendants and presents them with an ethical dilemma. We all know Star Trek's doing its best when their ethics are being challenged. So this is cool. They're in the Gamma Quadrant doing a science mission. For some reason, again, it just seems kind of weird with all the tensions going on with the Dominion that they'd be in the Gamma Quadrant doing it.
Yeah, it's a little it feels like it belongs in an earlier season just for that reason.
Right.
But
exactly. Yeah, boy, this article is not very informative, but I was pretty sure probably and I'm just reading off Wikipedia, probably if I bopped over to Memory Alpha.
I was looking down at Memory Alpha. It was pitched earlier in the show's existence.
That's exactly because this definitely fits a little bit more in season 3 or 4 even.
And that's kind of what I was seeing where it got pitched. It was it got pitched in 94 during the 3rd season.
Okay, got early in the 3rd season. Okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, this is an episode I like very, very much. And again, I remember reading a lot about it. This is kind of when the internet was new and I could research an episode online at StarTrek.com or one of the other, I think not StarTrek.com, but one of the other, I couldn't tell you what, but it was funny. I remember doing some research. I was at the State News at Michigan State where I was a student, and I was using our computer resources to I got some off time. I guess I'll look up Star Trek episodes.
StarTrek.com actually had a fairly extensive database and video library until recently. Of
course. Well, yes. But anyway, this was a fun one. I did like it. So they get snapped backwards into the past. Kira gets hit by a bolt of something, and if she doesn't get back to the station to get treatment, she's not going to make it.
Like deionized her millennial neurons or something, I think they said.
Odo can't hold his shape, so he has to go into a jar. So he's not a part of the episode until about a quarter of the way through. And all their descendants, including a descendant who is carrying the Dax symbiont, Yedrin is his name, says that, well, we found a way to recreate the accident because if you don't go through with it, we all die. And he's lying. And it gets found out
through his teeth.
It gets found out before people go back. So people are left with this dilemma. I love the Sons of Moog. You get a mixture of Klingon descendants plus regular humans who have just decided to embrace a Klingon lifestyle. Yeah, some really great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the end, not to jump too
They
far
say
ahead.
that you could kill someone just by looking at them. Only when I am angry. Okay,
Exactly.
thanks, Worf.
Yeah, very good. It worked. And she said I do not have a sense of humor. The Odo from present day, or from the Descendants, has figured out a way to survive out, because it's something in the environment made him go into the goo jar. He gets out and he says, Kara, I've had 200 years to think about it. I love you. And she's like, and they have one of Nana Visitor's weird kisses where she just goes. They have that when they're standing on the under a tree where
They're
our
standing
Kara
over
has
her own
died.
grave.
Yeah, exactly. But in the end, our people fly off thinking that they're going to go through with it and get stranded, but they sail through the barrier, and all the people in the past are erased. Turns out that Descendant Odo couldn't deal with the fact that Kira was going to die, so he sabotaged their efforts to stay, which, present day Kira is pissed about when present day Odo comes out, because future Odo linked with him, told him what he was going to do, and then so we had that point of exposition. But I loved it.
Yeah.
I guess I could see, now that I'm thinking more about it, I could see why in season 3 they wouldn't want to introduce the fact that Kira, who's dumb as hell, could figure out that Odo was in love with her. It was way too early in the series to do that, or perhaps that's what they felt. So
Yeah. Well, originally they were going to have Yedrin sabotage the thing. But
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he was already a bad enough guy, you know what I mean? So because he lied to him in the first place. But
I did think it was
yeah.
hilarious how they had Quark as a math teacher. That was
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, because their little settlement is just built out of all the pieces of the Defiant. So, yeah, super awesome. Absolutely loved it. I would even put it amongst one of the, particularly sandwiched in between all the very serious stuff as we're building, to the end of the season and the fever pitch where we're going to arrive. That this was a cool, very Star Trek-y diversion. Because our people are presented with an ethical issue. They think they're going to go one way. They ultimately decide to go a different way, and then the choice gets taken away from them.
Yep.
So yeah,
Classic.
yeah. So I absolutely love it. So okay. Speaking of classics, it's the swan song for a certain bald Maquis gentleman in episode 23. It was.
All right, episode 23. The fittingly titled Blaze of Glory.
John Bon Jovi. Near. There you go.
Directed by Kim Friedman, written by Robert Hewitt Wolf and Ira Stephen Bear. Aired May 12th of 97. An act of desperation by the Maquis, involving weapons of mass destruction, basically, could plunge the Federation into war. How foreshadowy. The Maquis have 30 cloaked missiles, allegedly, heading to Cardassia.
Yeah, this is a little before George Bush and everything. Well, I'm looking for weapons of mass destruction. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, 30 cloaked missiles headed towards Cardassia would be, look, they're right over there. You can make up anything you want. Because, yeah, so, we know that the Maquis were essentially entirely decimated when the Dominion came to town and the Cardassian joined, and the Cardassian said, well, here's my checklist. You're going to get the Klingons out of our space. You're going to kill all the Maquis. Those are the 2 things on my checklist.
Yep.
So there's practically no Maquis left. Eddington is in prison because of, being captured in the episode For the Uniform earlier in the season. So yeah, when this transmission comes across Sisko's desk, he realizes that he's got to do the road trip buddy comedy thing with Eddington, and of course they hate each other. So he goes, and Eddington is playing the fool because he's like, well, I really don't want to go with you, but I guess I will, because again, it ends up being a scam. And they have to go into the Badlands because they think they know where the base is. And they go through a lot of rigmarole and a lot of conversation back and forth. And Eddington thinks he's so tough. I'm going to kill you, Captain. I'm like, you suck, dude. You will never get the drop on Sisko. You can just really, and he will knock you out with one finger. It's just Eddington is just not very menacing. Oh, poor bald Kenneth. Kenneth. What the hell?
He tries. He definitely pulls off the I'm so great freedom fighter, but I actually kind of suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Kenneth Marshall, excuse me, who was, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, in the speaking about more movies from the early '80s and franchises that never took off. There was one called Kull the Conqueror. Does this ring a bell?
mm-mm.
He was a very young, svelte, long hair, and he was like a guy basically in He-Man's outfit, and he had like a huge throwing star that he would throw. Just Google it. It's
Oh, that thing. Okay.
oh, stop it! You're such a baby. Oh, but anyway, so yeah, they go through all this. They get to the missile base, and the whole thing is a scam because Michael was going to rescue not only a group of Maquis survivors that he hoped was there at a missile base where there's no missiles, but also his wife, which
Mm-hmm.
he was like, we just got married and then he captured me. And so this is when things get pretty heavy action because the base is overrun by Jem'Hadar and there's a lot of pew pew and
Lots of
yeah,
pew-pew.
lots and lots of pew pew. And at the end of it, Eddington has to sacrifice himself and go out in a blaze of glory by creating a diversion so that Cisco can rescue Rebecca, who is the wife, and the other survivors. So,
Yep.
so yeah,
All 6 of them.
this was super worth it.
I mean, all life is super valuable, but sometimes it's just like, oh boy, that was rough.
Exactly. Yeah, so I did read that this was a particular kind of passion project of Ira Steven Bear because he's like, of all the loose threads that we have in this show, I would like to tie up just one before the end of the season. So it's going to be the Maquis because we've whittled it down to a toothpick, with the Maquis stuff. And the part of it on Voyager doesn't count because that very quickly became not a factor. The Maquis thing on Voyager was big in the first season. It was kind of relevant in the second season, and then you rarely ever heard about it again. So I think they handled it well. It was, again, they built Eddington was one of these characters that, they brought him in the beginning of the third season. He wasn't really, he didn't do much. Nobody really cared. And then all of a sudden there was that great moment in the episode where he turned the tables and he was a Maquis badass. And now he and Cisco were dead set against each other. So this was a good way for him to go out as opposed to him just rotting in prison. It's like, who cares? So yeah, no, I liked it. I thought it was a good one.
It's a good episode.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was definitely a good way to wrap things up. So, okay. So we're going from dark-ish to one of the darkest that we've had this season.
Yeah.
In episode 24, which is Empok Nor. You recognize the Nor, but not the Empok. Mike Bihar doing the directing of a story by Brian Fuller and teleplay by Hans Beimler from, again, May of 97. O'Brien Garrick and an engineering team of non-coms go to Deep Space Nine's abandoned sister space station, Empok Nor, to salvage components because the station's falling apart. The Waytoons soon discover that this is so lame, that all is not as it seems. Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
There's
so,
more to the station than meets the eye.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
So anyway, this is obviously what they call in Star Trek parlance a bottle show because they were able to shoot this on all the promenade and different set pieces.
Yeah, they just had to change the lighting and throw some grating around.
Yeah, bits and garbage around there. But as soon as they get into the station, they find out that it was actually a weird medical testing lab where they have a couple of Cardassians in medical chambers locked into the infirmary who are being dosed with psychotropic drugs to make them like super Cardassians, but also high and completely insane.
They amped up their xenophobia to 11. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. And just made them just absolutely wacky crazy. And unfortunately, because Garrick has been baiting Chief O'Brien this whole thing, like, oh, you're a big hero, Chief. I'd love
hero
to.
Of the massacre of Setlik 3.
Exactly. He's being super creepy. So it's just like, all right, he needs to dial it down to about a 4. The Chief
this is definitely an episode where Garrick is just like pushing everyone's buttons just because he can.
Click, 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 click. But yeah, what obviously quickly happens is that while Garrett goes into super killer mode, he takes out these two psyched up Cardassians, but whatever it is that they had, he gets a dose of because it's airborne, or he snorts some or something.
He touches something
Yeah.
on one of the railings.
Yeah, and it's just happy goober time. So he then goes to systematically kill all the engineers. This is another one of those that you did a bunch of bad shit, but at the end of the episode, it's going to be fine. But he does kill all of them, takes Nog hostage, and challenges O'Brien to a final duel, which he whoops the shit out of O'Brien. Let's face it, while O'Brien is smart, he's always going to find his way to get his ass kicked, but he does manage to rig an
O'Brien
explosion.
must suffer.
Yeah.
It's a probably written rule in the DS9 Writer's Bible.
Right. So he does manage to extricate himself from the situation. And then, Garrick is knocked out, not killed. Even though he does say, well, I was really trying to kill you. And he's like, well, I totally get it. But you
see the respect on Garrick's face when O'Brien says, yeah, that wasn't supposed to just knock you out. It was supposed to kill you.
Yeah, right. But again,
Garrick,
Garrick doesn't end up suffering any consequences because he was on drugs, and that's not a great message. But it's for the sake of
it's kind of been that way in a lot of Star Trek episodes where someone gets affected by some sort of drug or some sort of telepathic effect, and then they're not really responsible for what they did because it basically removes all of their cognition.
Yeah, it's Data. Data was a classic of that in TNG because remember when Sung triggered his program?
Yeah, where he locks the ship down.
And then of course there was Lore and the Borg in the Descent 2-parter. But they're like at the end of it, he's just like, no, we'll just have him back. Or in Starfleet, you can just quit and come back whenever you want. So there's a whole other set of like rules and morality because he did murder 3 people and assault 2 others. So, this episode was very tense and definitely a lot more kind of systematic of the way shows are these days, where everything is so dark. You gotta turn the lights off so you can watch the episode, otherwise you can't see anything.
Yeah, but this was purposeful to show the station was abandoned.
Right.
This wasn't like, hey, I'm walking down the corridor on the Discovery and I can't see shit because
bonk. Oh,
I don't know.
I bumped into that.
Don't want to light it well.
Yeah, exactly. This was intense. It was as white knuckling kind of as they get. But again, it'd be like, well, Garrick should face some consequences, but it's like, how's that really gonna help? They're gonna he's not.
Garrick is kind of stuck there, so what are they gonna do?
Exactly, correct. So,
it's interesting that it's kind of like, other than I think the Nightmare episode with Bashir, which I think happened 2 seasons ago.
Season 3, Season 3,
this is like the first time, other than that, where Garrick has actually been like able to play a villain,
right?
Like a full-on villain,
outright, not just himself.
Outright villain, which is interesting because I think one of the earlier films that he did, he was a bad guy in a Clint Eastwood movie.
He was the Scorpio. Was it the Scorpio killer in the first Dirty Harry film?
That's it. Yep. And so it's just interesting how they kind of allow him to do something like that again.
Right. Gotcha. And I've met Andrew Robinson, and he's very nice. Great episode. Definitely great episode. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, in an effort to change gears yet again, they do, because we're getting heavy, little lighter, super light.
We're not quite to Ferengi love songs level, but we're edging in that direction.
Right. But we're getting a little
not
lighter.
Just edging in that. We're going way in that direction. We're not quite there.
It's more of the weed whacker to the edger. But anyway, please go ahead.
Episode 25, in the cards, on the nose. Michael Dorn directs. Story by Truly Barr Clark and Scott J. Neal. Teleplay by Ronald D. Moore. Aired on June 9th of 97. Jake wants to give his father a present to cheer him up because he and like half of the crew seem to be down. The gift that he wants to give him is a 1951 Willie Mays baseball card. He enlists Nog to help him obtain it because Nog is the only one who has money. But they run into complications with a mysterious geneticist, Dr. Geiger. Kai Wynn, worried over the prospect of a Federation-Dominion war and its effects on Bajor, meets with the Dominion representative, Weyoun.
So we've got we've got a serious thread with Wynn coming to the station and
which
really
isn't actually
yeah.
dwelt on all that much in the episode.
Right, but she's genuinely leaning on Cisco, saying, "I really need your advice."
Which is
Yeah,
an interesting thing, because this isn't something that, like, you can definitely see in this episode, which is unusual for this character,
yeah, yeah.
that she's actually like, I am not sure what I should do here. And
Right,
she
she's
really
vulnerable.
wants
Yeah,
Cisco's help, because not only is he the emissary, but he's a Starfleet officer
exactly.
with that diplomatic experience. And so this is like, and she's still herself, like being, kind of standoffish and arrogant about it, but she is
Right.
legitimately seeking his help, which, like I said, is unusual but refreshing for that character.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. So, and interspersed with a pretty silly plot line of them trying to bid on this card, and then they've got to get it from this geneticist guy he played a bit part of security officer in the very first season of Voyager, and he was one of the ones who ended up getting killed by the Vidians, and his face got put on another guy
Oh yeah.
who was trying to Pete. Can't remember his last name, but he was in maybe two
I
episodes.
was like, I know this guy.
Durst. It was Durst. Peter
That's
Durst.
why.
Lieutenant
Mhm.
Durst, yeah. So this Dr. Geiger, which just makes me think of HR Geiger, which is aliens. But yeah, they go through all this wacky plot line, and eventually they run afoul of Wei-Un. But they do manage to get the card
In
and
a super ridiculous scene where it's like, tell me what you're doing, and then he tells them, oh, we're trying to get this baseball card. It's like, no, tell me what you're really doing. And then Jake comes up with this whole cockamamie story about how they're working for Starfleet Intelligence, and Willie Mays
Right.
is a time traveler. And then
Right.
Wei-Un's like, I believe you. Really? Your first story.
Yeah, exactly. You've gone all the way around to making me believe your stupid story, and then lets him go. And then they give Cisco the card over this great, like you and I always talk about watching Battlestar with the Billisms, the great speeches that Bill Adama gives. Cisco's got a great series of voiceovers in his captain's log, and he gives one at the end of this that says, even in the toughest times, you can find something to make you smile.
And the relationship between Cisco and Jake is just really, really solid throughout this entire show.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's one of the few positive family father-son relationships that we have in Star Trek, which
Absolutely.
is interesting.
Well, I mean, there's, and again, it's not hard to find why, because when you have tension, you mine it for drama.
Oh yeah.
But every once in a while, you have to throw
sometimes
in
you have to show that families are a good thing. Fathers can be a good thing. Like, and so Cisco is really it really stands out for that. And I just it's just this episode, especially in that ending part, really
it's exceptional. I absolutely love it. It's good stuff. So awesome. Well, and again, that's not an episode that I watch a ton, but this next episode is an episode I watch an awful lot, because it has the single, certainly of Legacy Trek, the single most pause and rewatch it, pause and rewatch it, pause and rewatch it, last 5 or 6, we'll call it 5 to 10 seconds frame. But we'll get there in a minute. Episode 26 is Call to Arms. Alan Croker is back. Remember, I mentioned a couple of episodes that he has a knack for directing season finales, season premieres, and series finales. So this may be the first season finale that he's helmed. It's Ira and it's Robert Hewitt Wolf doing the writing from June of 97, faced with the realization that the Dominion are set to take over the Alpha Quadrant. Cisco decides to mine the entrance to the wormhole with self-replicating cloaked mines, thus beginning the Dominion War. Holy crap. What is not going on in this episode? This is packed with more intrigue, more excitement. The last act of this, the last 15 minutes or so,
super intense,
white knuckling, as the Defiant is trying to lay the last few mines as this massive Dominion fleet is coming towards the station. And I will admit, and this is pretty endemic of the time, that it's kind of it turns into a reused clip orama of, like, they have the season 4 Defense Against the Klingons, and they fire, and then here's a shot of Cardassian ships from the first episode of Voyager, and here's the shot of 3 Jem'Hadar ships from The Search back in season 3. So they got all the clips together for this one. Because again, when you don't have CGI, you got to rely on that kind of stuff. So reusing and reusing, but absolutely. And again, it's as much as there's not really ship to ship space battle stuff going on so much.
No, it's the
Yeah,
Rontaran and
right,
Deep Space Nine itself fighting off the
right.
Dominion.
Exactly. You know what I didn't notice is that they left unless the 3 runabouts were used to ferry people to Bajor.
That's what they seem to be doing.
Okay, yeah, we don't, because often, like back in the two-parter that we discussed last time, when the Defiant was teamed up with Ducat's bird of prey, at that time the 3 runabouts were there to provide assistance, like they were part of the
Yeah.
defensive line. Where in this, ultimately after
I
Cisco,
think part of it was they kept the runabouts because they just get blown up.
right, yeah, what are they going to do? Ultimately, the guys our gang is successful in getting the minefield set up. And they sabotage the station internally. Kira, everyone who's non-Starfleet is staying, including Jake. Jake's like, I'm a reporter and I'm going to here to stay. I'm like, that's ballsy, because he's assuming that he's going to be okay because he's the emissary's son, and Bajor's son has
and
another.
Rom tells him, like, I hope you're right.
Yeah, and yeah, Rom stays as well because he's going to stay and be a spy for Starfleet. Yeah, but he goes.
But the interesting thing is, Quark doesn't say no.
Yeah, he takes him back into to the bar. His job as assistant manager of policy and clientele, reporting for work, brother.
Yes, it does have a really, really badass Kira moment though, where she's like, "Odo, hail the Dominion and tell them that the Bajoran provisional government welcomes them to Deep Space Nine."
Yeah.
Now that that's out of the way, computer execute Cisco Alpha 1, and then all the computers on fry.
I remember in particular, it was either a rotating promo clip or it was from the scenes from Next Time that they showed the two of it's a low shot with Odo and Kira in a 2-shot walking towards them with the explosions behind them.
Yeah,
absolutely perfect.
Right at the end of the episode. It's great.
Absolutely perfect. But then our people are retreating. Cisco realizes that Jake is gone and he's pissed, but he's like, nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, we can't go back for one man, which he's right.
Exactly. And we get the most memorable, I'm going to go so far as to say 60 or so seconds that we've seen on this show to date, in my opinion. Because Weyoun, the Cardassians, everybody board the station. They make their way to Ops. Ducat forces his way into the overseer's office, and he walks up to the desk and picks up Cisco's baseball. And he would say, this is a message. He's letting me know he's coming back. And the music is swelling, and it goes back to Cisco, and it's pulling in. And then you get a space shot, Rotaran and the Defiant zooming into the distance,
bank around,
and then you just see a star field of ships. Klingon, Starfleet, and admittedly, in the pre-CGI days, we have only you got lots of Excelsiors, lots of Mirandas, lots of Galaxies, a few Akira here and there. You don't see any Sovereign, you don't see any Intrepid class. That's okay, but you're seeing plenty of the rest of them, and then you just see, our 2 ships bank. They like cut a doughy and then fly back towards, because everybody's going somewhere because they have now joined the fleet, and that's the end. Oh my god!
And then you have to wait a whole 6 months for the next episode.
Well, it was just 3.
Just 3. Okay.
Yeah, because this was June. New season started, and so it was June. So it was July, September, October. So it was maybe it was maybe like 2.5 months. So that was good.
Okay, not that bad.
Yeah, for shows under the old model. So, but what an intense!
Not quite you ruined my summer, but. There.
It was a good, and this was mid-June, so it was just like, our kids are just out of school, and so wow, just so intense, and one that I'll just go back to. And what's amazing is this, it'll be a while before we get back around to talking about season 6 of DS9, because of course we go in order, so we're going to, in our next episode, start talking about the 5th season of Voyager. But season 6 kicks off with a 6-episode arc to resolve this.
Mm-hmm.
Which is unprecedented. So you do see DS9 sticking their toe into what we know now very commonly is this massive arc-based storytelling. Very serialized storytelling, but it was DS9. And I remember Ira talking on the cruise when he was a guest on the cruise in 2023, saying, you know what, nobody was paying any attention to us, but we did what we wanted, and this is something we wanted. We wanted to do stuff like that, so that's what we did. And my God,
for Deep Space Nine, it works.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So, all right. So, Now you're gonna get real Sophie's choice, because we got to pick out a
Yeah,
favorite.
this kind of sucks.
Yeah, a favorite and a least favorite. I feel like the least favorite isn't too hard, because the Ferengi love songs was so ridiculous that it just because it's one of those you got to pick something.
Yeah.
Although in the cards might be a close second. I don't know. I might have to pass it to you. So least favorite.
I think for me, least favorite might be in the cards, just because the stupidness of Ferengi love songs I enjoy a lot more. Like there's good stuff in the cards, and like I said, there's that really good stuff with Cisco at the end, and there's some interesting things with Weyoun and Kai
Yeah.
Wynn.
Yeah.
But the A plot, it's fun, but it's not as just over the top zany stupid like the Ferengi love song. So if I had to pick one, it would have to be in the cards, just because I enjoy Ferengi love songs just a little bit more, because it was just that level of more stupid.
Yeah.
So
I can't disagree. I would probably have to side with you on that one. That makes sense. Because there's a little bit more.
That is not to say that In the Cards is a bad episode. It's a great episode.
And to enjoy, but yeah, and where the Ferengi love songs is a bit more enjoyable. While I absolutely love Children of Time, just because it's apart from what else is going on.
It doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, much like the storyline itself doesn't fit. There's no way that I can tilt away from the gravitas that is Call to Arms. That is a classic. That is a watch and rewatch. And just like I said, back in the day with the VCR, just pause and rewind and watch those last 10 seconds and try to pick out what's flying where and stuff. And undeniable.
It's a great episode.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to have to go with you. That's just it. Yeah. It is just the best episode out of the bunch. Like there's a whole bunch of solid episodes.
Yeah.
But that one just takes the cake. It's just that good.
It does. Oh boy. It's good stuff. And it leaves you wondering. And again, it doesn't do the, you don't know this until you're watching season 6, but it doesn't very cleanly wrap up like, nope, we won the war in one episode. It's like, that this is going to dominate.
Yeah, this is a cliffhanger that actually has like consequences, which is something that we haven't seen in Star Trek up to this point, which is good. I mean, Best of Both Worlds does have lingering consequences, but it's not like
it's not like
all the major two-parters in TNG do generally have lingering consequences, but they're not drastic that affect the characters in multiple ways throughout the entirety of the rest of their existence.
Exactly.
Like Time Zero, like it happened, but we don't really hear about it much after that.
Right.
Redemption happened, Chain of Command happened, but we don't really hear about it too much. Whereas this like starts off the whole Dominion War.
It dominates the rest of the series. So everything comes right back to this. So, well, cool. Good deal. All right. So next episode, the next 3 segments of Prodigy, and then we start the 5th season of Star Trek Voyager, which had some very memorable segments, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll get into that. But friends, as always, thank you for joining us. Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs, generally at Petrus Aquinas. I'm not terribly active, but you can find me. I'm generally more active on the Discords, so either the Secret Friends Unite or the Grand Petoskey or what have you. You can also find me on ELH's Twitch or YouTube channels, where I am playing a Cardassian in our new upcoming game.
Oh my. Go Peter.
No, actually it's Cardassian who has joined Starfleet.
So
even more interesting.
Have to adjust the necklace.
I'll have to adjust the collar, yeah.
Get a little stretchy.
This takes place in 92. 2392.
2392. So, well, that's
right before season 3 of Picard.
Oh,
it's right before season 2 of Picard. So it's the colored top with the.
Oh, you see, I like those because the collars you just have to make it a little wider. Yeah. That works.
And then you can also find me on Starship Excelsior.
Woohoo! I love it. I always forget to read this, but the mailbag is open at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Drop us a line. Tell us something you're enjoying out there in the Trek world. And much like if you leave us a note on the Trek channel on our Discord, we may very well read it on the show. I'm trying to get better at that. I just get so blah, that sometimes I find threads as at the C3 THECEETHR my time. I stay away from the Facebook, but I do stay on our Discord for both skin, which is a little something that April and I started up that is outside of SFI. As much as I love Trekker, who doesn't have to be part and wants to just talk Trek, you're welcome there. It's just a Discord channel. Find. But with that, I will let you know that sharing is caring.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.